welcome to another episode of the Why Behind the Why podcast. I am Tyrell James,
And I'm Dr. Nicole Thomas.
and today we are talking about the metaphysical explanation for fear. So, I just interviewed a guy on my other podcast a couple months ago, and he wrote this book called Fear. It's an acronym, FEAR. I believe it stands for Forget Everything and Reset. I believe the R stands for reset.
Okay, like that.
Yeah, I do too. I've also heard of other acronyms for fear, and I can't remember them all. But it's just people looking fear in the face and then deciding um, to have courage, because that's what courage is. Courage is being afraid of something and doing it anyway.
Yeah,
Just going for it anyway, and then it allows you to I think that it reveals character. It reveals, it lets you know what you have inside of you. Um, and I don't know. That's just my thought on it. But on the other side, fear is also very debilitating. It is paralyzing
absolutely.
for a lot of people. Um, and but fear shows up in different forms for different reasons. So that's what I want to get into today, in the metaphysical explanation for the way it shows up and why it shows up that way.
Yes, this is going to be fun. Yeah. And you know what? I think everybody, this is a subject that everybody can relate to.
Hmm.
And I think this is a subject that everybody can deal with. I mean, even personally, going into new ventures that I'm participating in now. I was just in a workshop on yesterday, um, and we talked a little about that then. And I was sharing how the message that I got for the last 3 weeks has been, feel the fear and push past it. Feel it and push past it, because it's the unknown. It's not knowing. There's certain things that you might not have all the information, and I'm one of those people. I like to know all the information before I participate. But there's times when you don't have all the information, and you just have to, push past that fear and go into the unknown and do it anyway. And just know that you got it. Just know that you got it, and everything you need, it lies within you. So I love this topic because I've been dealing with it personally.
Hmm. Yeah, as I believe we all do. Like you said, we all do. This is something relatable to everybody. Um, but I had a friend tell me a few years ago. He said, "Life isn't about what happens to you; it's about how you react to what happens to you." So let's
Absolutely.
talk about reactions to fear.
Okay.
So, what is it about a person's personality, or even the metaphysical explanation, if we can go under that surface, and figure out what is it about one person who will be afraid of something but decide that they need to look this fear in the face. For instance, I'm gonna give you a perfect example. I used to be afraid of snakes.
Hmm.
Now, when I was a kid, I had some things happen to me, not having anything to do with snakes, but when I was 10, I had it's just street stuff that kind of messed with me, that kind of, I don't really want to go too much into details, but I saw some things that and I was exposed to some things at a very young age that I should not have been exposed to. And it had this huge impact on me when I was younger. It created this fear, that this very paralyzing fear. And for years, from the age of 10 all the way up to 15, I was paranoid to the point that I believed that somebody was coming to kill me
Hmm.
because of a
Hmm.
situation that happened. So, um, but it was so paralyzing, and it prevented me from doing a lot of things that I wanted to do. And I remember just kind of sitting back and feeling as if life was just passing me by. I was watching other people. I was watching my friends enjoy things that I wanted to do. But I was too afraid to put myself in certain environments because I just knew that this particular person was coming to kill me. He had already killed somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I just because of an incident between the two of us, and he was 17 and I was 10, But again, not getting into all of the details, but because of this incident, I honestly believe that he was coming to kill me as well. But so I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to go anywhere. I just wanted to just it sent me into years of seclusion, honestly. So
Mm-hmm.
once I got to a certain point, I was sick of fears. And I had a therapist. I began seeing a therapist at 12 years old, not only because of that, because of a bunch of other, there was like a snowball effect. There was a bunch of things that just started happening, right? So um, once I got, once my very first therapist, I've seen like maybe, I believe I counted like 8 different therapists that I've seen. I had
Mm-hmm.
one that actually helped me. So one time we were, she asked me about all of the fears that I had. At the time, I was
Mm-hmm.
about 12 years old. And one of the fears that I told her about was my fear of elevators. I was
Okay.
afraid of getting stuck on an elevator. She gave me this exercise to do for, whenever I got on the elevator, told me to create this peaceful place in my mind, and to really, really focus on it but put the peaceful place that scene together one thing at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was by the time I completed this peaceful scene in my mind, the elevator doors were opening and I was getting off.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood that she was doing two things there. Number one, she was putting my mind on something else in the midst of the
Mm-hmm.
fear, but she was also forcing me to face the fear.
Right.
Because what are the chances that I can go through life without getting on an elevator? you know? So I have to face the fear before the fear comes to me.
Right.
So when it dawned on me exactly what it was that she was doing with that, and it took me a few years before that really sunk in that that's what she was
Mm-hmm.
doing. It made me realize, okay, I need to face my fears. I need
Mm-hmm.
to come face to face with every fear that I have before it comes to me. So as I got older, every fear that I had, I I came face to face with it. I had a fear of drowning.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would do is I would go to the pool, I would go under the water and hold my breath for as long as I could. Because for me, that was the closest I could get to drowning. But I was looking drowning in the face and telling it, you can't win because I'm the one that's in control here. I can come up and breathe at any point that I wanted to. Because of the stuff that happened when I was 10 years old, I had a fear of the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm a bit of an extremist when it comes to certain things, but I went and I found one of the worst neighborhoods in DC and I hung out there and I was there on a regular basis until I just became a part of them, you know. Not the safest way to face that fear, but for me, I have to come face to face with my fears. Um, the downside to that is you don't go through the amount of things that I went through and even face the fears in the manner that in the manner that I face my fears without a monster being created.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I've had to tap that monster in. Whenever fear was approaching, I'll tap that monster in. And when that monster comes in, there's no room for fear. Right. So now getting back to the snake, the issue with the snake. Had this fear of snakes. I decided I went to this big indoor, it was like an indoor zoo. And
Mm-hmm.
they had this part where you could take a picture with a snake wrapped around this huge snake. And I took this picture with this huge snake wrapped around me. And they took the picture, I was like, all right, get this thing off of me. All right. But at that point, wasn't afraid of snakes anymore. Right. So now I'm at a point where I taught myself how to swim, not afraid of drowning. I went and spent a little bit of time, hanging out in the streets and, just being a part of that community, I guess, right? Um, and you get exposed to things, you see things, you do things, whatever, and but now not afraid of the streets. Probably have gone into some neighborhoods that I really have had no business being in by
Mm-hmm.
myself, but just not afraid of it. Just not afraid of it anymore. Snakes. I have now moved from DC out to the Eastern Shore of Maryland, where in my backyard I have had snakes, and I've gone out there and I've killed them because I'm not afraid. Now I'm not afraid of you, but you can't be a snake and in my yard. You got to pick one. You can either be a snake or you can be in my yard, but you can't be both. So if you're going to be a snake and you're in my yard, I got to come kill you, So, but again, not afraid of it. Not afraid of it.
Right.
I'll go hop on an elevator in a second, with no problem because I've come face to face with all of these fears. Now, the thing is, the thing is, I I believe. I'm sorry, I got a little distracted. My grandson just ran out here. Um, but um, so when I look at the way I approach fears,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people who are like me, and then I look at the way other people, approach their fears. For instance, my wife is extremely scared of spiders. You can't even say
Mm-hmm.
the word around her. My mother's afraid of snakes. You can't even say the word around her.
Okay.
But they have a paralyzing fear of these
Mm-hmm.
things. They completely lose it. Completely lose it. They cannot be around it. They can't hear it. They can't see it. So what is the difference? I guess the metaphysical explanation for how you deal with fears and how you
Okay.
approach it. Matter of fact, actually, I got two questions for you. One, the metaphysical explanation for how the fear shows up,
Okay.
and then the metaphysical explanation for how you deal with the fear when it shows up.
Okay. Well, we can't talk about it without talking about energy,
Okay.
because what is metaphysics? It's energy and matter, right? So
Hmm.
we got to look at it from an energy standpoint. So when we look at it from an energy standpoint, how does fear come about, and how does fear stay, and how does fear keep running its cycle in all of us, right? So if we
Right.
look at it from an energy standpoint, well, like attracts like, right? It's one of the universal laws. Like attracts like. The law of attraction, whatever's in has to show up on the outside of you, right? So
Right.
if there's fear and it dwells within inside of you, then it has to show up in some form on the outside of you. And it can show up in many different ways to bring upon that same feeling of fear. So it's different situations that will come up to bring upon the emotion. So it's
Mhm.
not the actual act, because we're creators, we're a piece of God, and all it is the master creator, and we're a piece of that create. So we have the ability to create. So whatever's inside of us emotionally, it's going to come out. And how does it come out? It comes out in situations, people, places, and things to create the same feeling. So that's where when you sow, you reap. Whatever you sow, you reap. So if you're sowing fear, then things have to show up outside of us to give us the same feeling of fear, because that's so within, so without, right?
Right. Mhm.
So are we actually saying snake, 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 come to us? Are we actually creating the snake? No, but we are creating the emotion. So if snake is the tool that brings upon the emotion, then it's the snake comes to bring upon the emotion of fear.
Mhm.
And that's with everything. And the way that our brain works, I heard it's said, and I can't even recall because it was years ago, that our brain has like road maps in it. So it's thought patterns. So even our thought patterns are like road maps. They just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. Those same kind of thoughts just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming, because it's almost like a program. It's like a computer, and whatever's in that computer is what comes up. It shows up. It just keeps showing up and keeps showing up and keeps showing up. So it's the same way with fear. It's the same way if that dwells within us. And so let's, for an example, if you're having some fearful thoughts, and say, and thoughts are very, very powerful things because thoughts bring about emotions.
Hmm.
So say that day you're having some thoughts about what happened when you was a kid, and it's bringing upon the emotion of fear because just that thought can bring upon that emotion with it. When that emotion is within, then it comes out. You're showing that, whether it's consciously or unconsciously. And most of the time, it's unconsciously.
Hmm.
And then later on that day, or 5 minutes after, you go outside and you see a snake in your yard, and you try to figure out how the snake got there. But you just sowed the emotion of fear.
Hmm.
So something has to show up on the outside of you to give you bring upon that same emotion, because that's the only way you know that you sold it.
Right.
And you're wondering how it got there and why they keep coming. Why the snakes keep coming? Why they keep coming in my yard?
Mhm. Okay,
So a
so I
lot
got a
of times
question.
being aware of what's inside. And once you are aware of what's inside and what you are sowing, then you can then fix it. Now, the second question was, how do we fix it? I
Right. Well,
love.
actually, before you get there, I'm sorry, I have a question about. All right, I I'm wondering if my question is going to actually lead into what you're about to say, but I want to, just in case it's a different answer, I want to. So, because I'm not afraid of snakes anymore, you
Mhm.
know what? I think this may be a third part. So I tell you what, let me throw this out there. If it does lead into what you're about to say, great. If not, we can come back to it. Okay.
Okay.
Um, because and the reason I'm saying is because you mentioned snakes keep showing how they keep showing up, right?
Mhm.
And I've had them show up in my yard, several times. But the thing is, the fear isn't there anymore.
Mhm.
I'm not afraid of them anymore. So now what's happening is a past fear keeps showing up. So what is it that I'm sowing? What energy is it that is inside of me that is causing a past fear to show up?
Oh, a good question. So that's going to cause us to dig a little, okay? Because that's more of a personal question.
Hmm.
So, one question for you, and this is going to cause you to really, really think about it. So, you faced a fear of snakes, which caused you to be able to now deal with it. But does that mean that that there is no residue left? So, are you completely unafraid of snakes? Can you completely say there is absolutely no fear in you at all? So, for example, everybody that knows me knows personally knows that I don't like bugs. I'm scared of bugs. My mom did it. She messed me up. Okay, at a young age, she
Hmm.
messed me and my sister up when it came to bugs. So I am scared of bugs. Okay. So
Hmm.
usually, if I see a bug, I'm calling the boys, one of my boys, and I'm like, "You gotta kill it." They know the certain yell is because it's a bug, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, that doesn't mean that sometimes I don't get brave enough to kill it, and that doesn't mean that sometimes that I don't get up the courage to go ahead and kill it. But I'm still scared of them. It didn't take away the fact that I was scared of it. It just means that I mustered up the courage to kill it. But there's
Okay.
still fear there. So what I'm asking you is, can you search yourself and go inside and really, really examine it and see if at those times have you just mustered up the courage to deal with it, and you can look it in its face and deal with it, but there's still some fear there? Or have you completely killed, where there's absolutely, where you can search yourself and there's absolutely no fear there? Like, I could pick this snake up with no problem and toss it to the side because there is no fear there.
Well, I do think that the fear is gone. Well, I mean, it depends on the size of the snake. You get an anaconda that looks. I'm not going to be swimming around the Amazon or anything like that. All right. So yeah, if it gets to a certain size, then yeah, I am afraid. But um, as far as what I've seen in my yard, I'm wondering if it's more so about what the snakes represent
Now,
because
see, that was my second thing.
okay,
Because animals, a lot of times, animals, bugs, those kind of things all have, they have spiritual meanings, and they
mm,
come to give us a message.
right,
And
hmm
although there is a lot of negative connotation with certain animals like snakes, when you really dig in, so everybody has a choice and a perception. You can look at everything in a negative light, or you can look at it in a positive light. So snakes really do have a positive message. Because what do? They shed their skin. They're resilient. They grow. You can cut a piece off and it grows back. You know what I mean?
hmm
And they come and they bring great spiritual messages. So
the only message they've been bringing me is, "Hey, I need to die." That's it. So I kill
right. But if they keep showing up, I would encourage you to look up the spiritual meaning of snakes
them.
and
Hmm
see what message is it's coming to bring you, because most of the time it's right on point. It's
hmm
right on. And most of the time, if you get the message, then they'll go ahead and go.
hmm
But
Um.
typically they do come to bring messages.
hmm
And um, before we get off this, I'll look it up for you really quickly so we can have that talk.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we can circle back to that. I'm gonna
Yeah.
in a minute I'll grab my other phone so we can look it up.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because I definitely want. And what you said is really interesting about them shedding their skin, and um that that right there is that says a lot. That says a lot if that's the message that they're bringing. Um, I think for me, if I personalize what they have meant to me, what they have symbolically, what they've meant to me over the years, it's mistrust, it is sneakiness, um, it is the devil, you know, like just growing up, and I oftentimes wonder if in the story of creation, when Eve was speaking to the serpent, what if that was an elephant? Would people be afraid of elephants and look at serpents or snakes the way they see serpents or snakes? What if would all of that have been switched? I believe a lot of that is programming. Honestly, I think we are just a lot of us are just conditioned to be afraid of snakes because of this talking snake that happened to be Satan and just changed the course of everything. I mean, considering people believe that story. you know
Absolutely. And I think that goes along with a lot of different stories. So if you think about it, when people talk about witches, they talk about spiders.
hmm
And it can be a negative connotation on spiders, but spiders, the meaning behind spiders are creativity.
hmm
I mean, think about the web that they weave.
hmm
If you look at the web that they weave, it's most of the time it's beautiful, number one, and so meticulous in how it's done.
hmm
You know what I mean?
That's
So
true. hmm
they spiders have very, and I'm scared of spiders, okay, but they have very great meanings, and they come to bring very great messages.
hmm
So creativity is just one that stands out in my mind right now.
hmm
But very and protective. So think about it. Um, a spider will take a long time to weave that web, and then it'll catch something. You know what I mean? It's purposeful. It does things on purpose.
Right.
You know. So there's very, very good. So we can choose to look at bad aspects of everything. So even for us, we can talk about food, right? Let's talk about food in particular. With food in particular, I mean, if you eat too much of a thing, food can be a very, very bad thing, right?
Right.
It
Hmm.
can cause a lot of problems and be a very, very bad thing. But we need food in order to survive.
Right. Hmm.
We can look at it as we need food to survive and it's great for our bodies and it brings nourishment and vitamins and minerals that we need in order to be healthy. But
Hmm.
we can also look at the negative side. If it's abused, then it can lead to obesity and high cholesterol and
Hmm.
diabetes and everything else. So
Right.
everything is how you look at it, um, and your perception about it, because we are, again, we are creators.
Right. Hmm.
So even so one, and I'm really big on affirmations, right?
Hmm.
Because I think programming, a belief is nothing more than something you tell yourself over and over and over and over again. That's all a belief is. So,
Hmm.
given over the years, they've given us a lot of stuff, right? They told us a lot of stuff, and they say it over and over, and that's the way you program. So we're programmed, but a lot of us are programmed by the outside in. There's something, someone else, that has programmed that they have gave us the thoughts and the ideas, but we can program ourselves
Right.
to know, believe, or and I like knowing something different that serves us. So one of the things that I tell myself on this journey of getting healthier is that food is fuel.
Hmm.
Food is fuel. And because I know the power of creating, I know that once as a man thinketh in his heart, so shall it be. As a man thinketh in his heart, so shall it be. So if I can convince myself that food is fuel for my body, then guess what has to happen? It has to be fuel for my body.
Hmm.
It has to. So, but if you tell yourself that food is bad for you, and it's going to make you gain weight, and it's going to make you this, and it's going to make you that, and it's negative, then it has to do it. As a
Right.
man thinking in his heart, so is he. So what are you telling yourself? What have you made your knowing?
Hmm.
Because what's the difference between somebody who eats a whole lot of food and don't gain a pound and a
Hmm.
person that eats very little and gain, it looks like everything, they eat more than the person that sits there and eats the two Big Macs and two fries and two milkshakes at one sitting. What's the difference?
All right. All right. You're making me hungry.
Other than their belief or knowing. You
Hmm.
get what I mean? So
Right.
I say all that to say there's so many, it's your perception, it's your thoughts. It is what you have chose to believe about a thing. So even with bugs, I may be scared of it because that's what I was taught. It was given to me. But
Hmm.
somebody who lives in the woods that's very used to bugs, or didn't grow up the way that I grew up, and they can pick a bug up and don't think twice about it, right?
Hmm.
And it does nothing to them. It doesn't hurt them. You got people that go play with lions. And
Right.
you know what I mean? And not afraid at all. And the lion does not hurt them at all.
Hmm.
So what you tell yourself, what you think, what you believe, what you know, plays a part in everything you do. It plays a part in what you create.
Hmm. Right. Okay. So, okay. So getting back to as far as the way a person reacts to the fear. So we spoke about how the fear shows up
Hmm.
and the reason that the fear shows up. So now I want to talk about how the difference between the person who looks fear in the face and has that courage to deal with it, and the person who just has this paralyzing fear. and just they're not the fear controls them. I guess that's a
Mhm.
better way to put it. The difference between the person who controls the fear and the person who allows the fear to control them.
Mhm. Well, I mean, action is the difference. But so if we talk about it on a metaphysical level, or in an energy matter. So I would what I was saying prior to that, I love what your therapist did, because what she did was she caused you to create a peaceful place.
Hmm.
She paused you when she told you to get on that elevator, and then to think about something else, and she gave you some tools to do it. What she was doing was telling you to create peace
Right.
by way of thought.
Hmm.
And of course, thought is energy, thought, and thought becomes things, right?
Right.
So instead of what she was telling you to do is, instead of focusing on the fear, turn away from the fear and create a new thought, which will bring upon a new emotion.
Hmm.
Okay. Which
Right.
is beautiful, because that we have the ability to do that. That's how powerful mind is. You can literally sit and think about that was something that happened to you and that made you sad, and everything, all that emotion or grief or sadness will come rushing back, like it's happening right now, like it
Hmm.
just happened, and it'll bring upon all that feeling. And then you can think about something happy that brings a lot of joy to you, and all that emotion that came, like you were right there, like that time is right, you're right back in that time, will come rushing back, right?
Hmm.
That's how powerful your mind is. So if there's fear there and you want to change that and sow something different, then you have to change the thought. And that's exactly what she was telling you to do. Turn away from that thought of fear and turn it into another thought that's joyful, that's more pleasant. And when
Hmm.
you did that, you bring upon a different energy, and you bring that energy to yourself, which then created a new reality for you.
Okay. So that makes perfect sense when we're talking about a fear that we can pinpoint. And I have a, I think I know where you're going to go with this. And before you even say it, I agree with you already. But this is more so for the people who may be thinking, who for this for people who may be thinking about this. Okay, let's talk about
Okay.
anxiety. Anxiety is pretty much the fear of something that has not happened, and there's a really good chance that it probably won't even happen. Right. I spoke to a friend of mine a few years ago, and she was saying, she had very very high anxiety, and a therapist told her every single time that you get afraid of something, I want you to write it down on a sheet of paper, fold it up, put it inside of a jar, and I want you to do that for an entire month. And at the end of that month, I want you to open that jar, and I want you to pull out every single one of these fears that you had, and I want you to count how many of these things actually happened. And she says she did that, and at the she had a bunch of fears, a bunch of things that she had written down and put inside this jar. And when she opened the jar and she started reading, she said none of that stuff ever happened. So what about the person who can't necessarily pinpoint a fear? They just have anxiety that something's going to happen, something bad. They don't know what it is, but something bad is going to happen.
I have a client. I love that question. And I have a client, and we talk about this all the time, because they have a way of creating these stories. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it'll be, if something, they knew something was going to happen, they would play out every scenario in their head. So that way they wouldn't be surprised any way it went. So they would play out
Right.
every scenario that could happen, they would play it out in their head mentally before
Mhm.
it happens. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, And we
I'm laughing
talked
because
about,
I do that. But go ahead.
I know. Um, and we it took a while for them to get it, but understanding that all of that's energy.
Hmm.
So every time you took those scenario and you played them out in your head, you are creating. Because most people that are very imaginative, like that, can they really can get into it, and they can bring upon the emotion that comes with it. So as they're playing out those realities or those things that could happen, they have all the emotion that comes with it, right?
Hmm.
So you're creating every time you do that. So it took a while for them to understand that we can take all that energy, and we can focus it to what you want to happen. And you can
Hmm.
play out how you want that story to look and put all of that attention to how you want it to go in the
Right.
positive side of things, so that you can create the emotion that feels good. Now, that scenario that you played out might not happen, but what
Hmm.
you are sowing is joy, something that is joyful to you, or something that's full of peace, which will then bring about something on the outside of you that looks like joy and peace.
Okay.
So,
Hmm.
to answer that question, a lot of times I'll tell anybody the mental work is the hardest work you'll do in your life. Most
Hmm.
they've taught us action. They've taught us everything is action oriented, but nobody ever taught us to do the mental work, to take the time to take control of your thoughts instead of your thoughts taking control of you. Most of
Right.
the time, people's thoughts take control of them instead of them taking control of the thoughts. But we are powerful beings. Take control of your thoughts. So it's our job to monitor the thoughts that come out. It's our job to put the thoughts that we want in. That's our job to do. So if there's thoughts that you are thinking that is not giving you the reality or creating the life that you want, then you have to take the time to change the thoughts. And how do you do that? You have to reprogram the computer. You have to reprogram, you have to give it a thought, keep giving it the thought that you want until the program takes. So, for example, a person that has high anxiety like that, most of them are very creative, very, very creative people, but that can work for their benefit.
Hmm.
And so if they take those times, and as they're going out playing over these scenarios and thinking about what could happen, then if that thought comes that of something that they don't want, it's up to us to stop and say, I don't like the way that sounds, I don't like the way that feels, let me create something I want and
Hmm.
turn it. But a
Okay.
lot of us was never taught
Right.
that we could even do that even mattered.
Hmm. Okay. So one more question. Maybe I
Hmm.
may come up with more questions. Um, I have had anxiety that shows up. Not I have had. I still do. I will have anxiety that shows up in the form of a warning.
Okay.
So what will happen is the same type of, my anxiety when I was a kid was very different because again at that age it was paralyzing, and it was very controlling. It was controlling me, and I there were times that I even had panic attacks, right?
Hmm.
So now I will have, it's the weirdest thing. My senses get heightened. I can hear, see, feel, smell everything, but just on an extremely heightened level. And but that the sensitivity to the senses at that point, it comes with a certain degree of anxiety. Why can I
Okay.
smell so well? Why does my vision seem sharper? Even though I want my vision to be sharper, but the way it's happening, it's a little unnerving. It doesn't sit well with me because I have had so many instances where that has happened and then something bad happens. And I realized that what's happening is anxiety is showing up in the form of a warning to let me know, hey, you need to be aware of something. Something's going to happen. So now I'm at a point where that happens. Um, Never mind. I think I'm about to answer my own question. It's intuition. It's intuition. I was going to say, I have this saying when the wind blows wrong, because that's, I'm telling you, I've been in so many. I came up with that when I was just being in certain neighborhoods, and we're just out there. I'm hanging out with people, just, and then something just isn't right, and then it's like the wind blows wrong, and I'm like, something bad's about to happen here, and then something bad happens. um and but I have learned now that when that happens, to all right, it's time to get out of whatever situation I'm in, whatever environment I'm in. It's time to remove myself, but
Yeah.
I understand. But yeah, I answered my own question. I figured it out. It's intuition. It's
Yeah,
intuition.
and it's a beautiful thing. It's something that I teach my children. So
Hmm.
like one of the things we talk about, because I understand that they're going to do what they're going to do. You can't, I learned a long time ago from raising all these kids that I'm in control of a little bit of nothing. You know what I mean? Because it's a false sense of control, because when they get outside of you, they're going to do what they're going to do.
Right.
So I'd rather be in the knowing than not. So I'll tell them all the time, pay attention to how you feel, because if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. So the minute it doesn't feel right, call me immediately and say, come get me. And no questions asked. No questions asked till I get there. Once I get there and we get to safety, then we can talk about it. But even if it doesn't feel right, you don't have to wait for it to happen. Like, you
Right.
don't have to wait for anything to go down. If it
Hmm.
doesn't feel right, call. No
Hmm.
questions asked. We get out, because intuition is a beautiful thing. So like,
And it's an energy then, right? Intuition is
it's
an
it's
energy.
energy. It's
Okay.
energy. It's
Hmm.
energy. And sometimes you can't put it in words. Sometimes you don't really know exactly what you're feeling, but you
Hmm.
know that it doesn't feel good.
Right.
So when you have that energy, and the more you accept it, so for you was like, it's unsettling, but the more I would encourage you, not at that time, like, do what you gotta do to get out, but
Right.
at the same time, start taking the time to see what that feels like and put the word to it. It feels
Oh.
like, so that you can start teaching yourself what the energy that you're feeling is,
Hmm.
and then you can match it up with whatever happened, to see if it matches, because a lot of times you can match it, you know what I mean? So
Hmm.
if and then you'll start developing that more and more and more and more and more, and you'll be able to pinpoint exactly what you're feeling, what's going on,
Right.
and
Okay.
develop it. A lot of people won't operate. We're more spirit than we are physical, but we've been taught to be more physical than we are spirit. So a lot of times we will abandon that spirit side of ourselves, which is the biggest side.
Right.
So, I would encourage you to develop it, to start pinpointing, paying attention to it, because it's a great thing. It is a great thing when you're not afraid of it, and when you can accept it as who you are,
Hmm.
and then start operating in that space, and you find out who you really are and
Right.
how great that is.
Right. Okay. Okay. I think we uncovered and unpacked it all. This is it's been insightful. I've studied fear over the years just because of the things that I went through. Um,
Hmm.
I've studied different ways of dealing with fears, but I don't think it's ever been simplified like this before. It's the thing that I love about metaphysics so much, and what you have taught me, is that metaphysics forces you to take accountability for the energy that you are responsible for. So it's yeah, that this it was definitely enlightening. I mean, even with all of the things that I have learned about fear and the way that I react to it, and the way that me seeing other people react to it, I think that I still feel like I even learned a lot more today. And but it needed to be simplified though. Um, I'm hoping that people are able to watch this and start to deal with their own fears in a different way. Understand the energy that you're responsible for, and that this is an energy that has to show up because it's inside of you. So if you
Right,
figure out how to change that energy, then the way it shows up outside of you is going to be different.
right. And it
Hmm.
takes time. It takes
Oh.
time. So be kind to
Hmm.
yourself as you go through the reprogramming process, or while you're going through the acknowledgement of it and
Hmm.
how to redirect your energy to something else. Because if you're not taught that, it takes time to do it, and it
Right.
doesn't happen overnight. So be kind to yourself but acknowledgement is huge. Acknowledging that I am afraid of it. Okay, here's fear. Okay, there's fear.
Hmm.
Okay, that's not what I want, and being able to turn the attention to something else.
Hmm.
Now, given if there's a fearful situation that comes up, you deal with the fear, but then when you get finished dealing with the situation, because you've already manifested it. So once you dealt with that, then to go back and say, well, what was going on? What's in me that's causing the fear?
Hmm.
you know and, and
Right.
and you can do that work, and then some people don't have to do that work. They can just go straight to, what, I don't like the way that I feel, I'm not doing that. And they go into whatever modalities they go into in order to um defeat that. You know what I mean? So for me, knowing that I'm a piece of God and all that God is, I am, that's my modality. Nothing can hurt me, you know. So when I feel that energy of fear, I go straight into, I'm well protected. I'm very, very well protected, and I go into what helps me, and I remind myself of who I am, and I remind myself of all my angels and my ancestors, and everything surrounds me, and I have no need to fear. So whatever that is for you, you know, you remind yourself of who you are
Hmm. Okay.
to you can switch that energy.
Hmm. Well, speaking of energy, I'm hungry and I need to go get some fuel. So,
Food is fuel.
yeah,
Food is fuel.
yes, food is fuel. So,
Absolutely.
okay, all right. So we look, we apologize for taking probably we've been off for like a month or something like that. But,
Yes.
sometimes you got to step away and reset. Life happens, and but we don't want you to think that we're going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. So we will be back in 2 weeks with another. I think we're going to talk about sex in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We're going to do okay, the metaphysical explanation for sex. Okay, looking forward to that.
Yeah. This one's gonna be an interesting one.
Yes, yeah, yeah, it is. I'm looking forward to that one. But we will definitely be back in 2 weeks. So we're going to go ahead and sign off now. I am Terrell James.
I'm Dr. Nicole Thomas.
All right, and please don't be afraid to ask why. Y'all take care.